our monarchy is totally clapped out. It's exhausted. It's thinning out. The next three monarchs, including this one, are confused and cloistered men who don't really understand the world that we live in. And I think that if they had any sense, after this scandal, they would simply abdicate and let us turn this very sad moment, quite a grim moment for our country, into something fun and imaginative and interesting.
Damn, even Prince George caught a stray. But wait, there's more.
I mean, I think a potted plant would be better than the current monarch, actually, if we put it on a throne.
Well, I've been trying to find the words on what to say for a while. Hold on. Let me find it. We're going to talk about a lot of things in this video. First thing is I'm going to answer a lot of questions I continue to receive even though I answered them in previous videos. Let's talk Andrew's titles, former titles. The formal process to remove the style, titles, and honors of Prince Andrew means the king is going through Parliament. I have said this for years that Charles has to go through, any monarch, British monarch has to go through Parliament in order to remove titles. They meaning the monarch themselves, do not have the power to remove titles. I don't know how people are confused by that, but seemingly still are. Either way, Andrew will no longer be an HRH, a prince. He's not a duke. He is simply Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, a commoner. That is important because I feel like people are downplaying Andrew's titles being taken away from him. Remember, he has no diplomatic immunity. He is now considered a commoner, private citizen. And I think people also have to realize Andrew has never been formally charged with any crime. He is wanted for questioning. That's it. And he refuses to go in for questioning. So think about what stripping of his titles could potentially mean going forward. Okay, so we've received confirmation that Andrew is going to the king's private estate on Sandringham. And the king, Charles, is going to be footing the bill. Charles has Charles has a choice, but he really doesn't because Andrew is only allegedly worth around £5 million. That's pennies in millionaire dollars. It's more than what we all have, but it's pennies to last him the rest of his life. Do I find it interesting that Charles did not have enough money to take care of Harry and Meghan and their potential, well, back then potential, but now current 2 children? Yeah. But he has all the money in the world to take care of Andrew, even though that's just one person. But still, considering what Andrew has been accused, I have to choose my words wisely, so don't come for me in the comments. Y'all know I ain't trying to be sued. To think he has the money to help out an individual with, yeah, and not his own son. Beatrice and Eugenie's princess titles are unaffected. And I think another thing that is confusing people, not everybody, but I'm just seeing it across my social media platforms. Prince and princess titles in the male line are a birthright in the British royal family. It is a birthright because that is the law. That doesn't mean they can never be taken away. They can be taken away, and I've always said for years that Parliament, they have to go through Parliament in order to remove those titles, which is exactly what is happening now. Therefore, in order for their princess titles to be removed, Charles would have to do the same thing to them as he is doing to Andrew. It makes no sense for him to do it to these two because they did nothing wrong throughout that whole time. They were underage for the most part until I think the last point was when Beatrice was, 20 and Eugenie was 18, 19. Even that's still pretty young. Obviously, they know now what transpired, but I highly doubt they knew back then what was actually going on. Bottom line, they are unaffected. Fergie Ferg has to make her own way now. She will not be moving in with Andrew. She has been long divorced from Andrew. I think also because Charles is footing the bill now, he's like, listen, Andrew's my brother. You are the ex-wife. You need to figure it out. You've been living on Crown estates and property for years well after your divorce. It is not up to the royal family to support you anymore. Also, the only title Sarah had was Sarah, Duchess of York. She was not Sarah, the Duchess of York. She was only Sarah, the Duchess of York, when she was married to Andrew. But after her divorce, she became Sarah, Duchess of York. Once Andrew stopped using that title, she lost that title. She is merely Sarah Ferguson. She will remain Sarah Ferguson for the rest of her life unless she decides to get married again. Sarah is officially cut off. Andrew does not have royal security, meaning like the Met Police. Andrew has private security paid for by Charles, I think in the amount of $3 million a year. Clearly there were conversations between Andrew, Charles, and the late Queen because Andrew is getting a hell of a lot. I mean a hell of a lot considering. But I also feel that Andrew is being protected because of the whole Epstein situation. I mean, we've seen what happened to not only Jeffrey Epstein, but some of the victims, including Virginia, under very suspicious situations. As it stands, Andrew is still in the line of succession. That would also take an act of parliament to remove him. And from what I have looked at earlier, I think they are declining to do so. To be completely honest, Andrew being in the line of succession doesn't even really matter anymore. If it was a situation where Charles had not married yet, nor had children, and his children had children, then I think that would be a little bit different because he would be closer to the throne. But Andrew is 8th in line to the succession. That is a lot of people who would have to ultimately go, if you understand what I'm saying, before Andrew could become king. And even then, I am fairly certain that would never happen in itself. The heirs before him would be highly protected, especially William's children. At the recording of this video, he's still listed on the royal family website as Prince Andrew. However, the royal family website is always updated. It takes them forever to update. You would think something of this magnitude would have been updated a lot quicker, but you know how that goes. My personal thoughts on the matter is I firmly believe these discussions have been going on for a very long time because this isn't something I think Charles will wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to do this. I do feel like Charles took steps to get to this point, and this could have been a discussion when Queen Elizabeth was alive. Who knows? The start of removing his military honors, right? Hell, Charles and Elizabeth could have had a private discussion, and Charles really could have just said, hey, when you're gone, Andrew's gone. And with the late Queen being so old, she's probably like, I don't give a fuck at this point. So we're looking back at retiring from royal duties, or being retired from royal duties, losing military honors. Charles stopped his annual £1 million allowance a year. Andrew has been stripped of something pretty much every single year, right before the Queen's passing to present. And I think this is just the last step. Now, looking towards the future, do I think there will be provisions for William to continue taking care of his uncle when Charles is gone? That's if Andrew outlives Charles. I don't think so. I think William definitely will be cutting that off, honestly. My final thoughts are Andrew is done for. And what I mean by that, he is in complete exile and isolation. So long as he is on crown property, he is in a sense protected because it's privately owned property, right? He may have a chance in the Middle East. He was offered apparently a palace in Dubai or something like that. But traveling abroad, that might be a done deal for him, honestly. The only way I could see that happening is if he traveled private, and that whole trip would have to be private. He can never show his face in the United States ever again. He's limited. Imagine being and growing up a very privileged individual, and you have to live out the rest of your life in complete isolation, alone. Aside from, of course, his children and grandchildren. That would drive any man crazy. Anywho, comment your thoughts below. Obviously, let me know what you think. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Mwah. Bye.